Hey there, everyone. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank all of our sponsors who help make MinnoTank possible. Bradford Allen is a commercial real estate firm that specializes in finding office space and negotiating tenant-oriented leases for startups and larger companies too. The best part is their service is performed at no cost to the client because all fees are paid to Bradford Allen by the landlord after the lease is signed. Visit minnotank.com/sponsor to learn more about our sponsor, Bradford Allen. DoubleTake Promotional Marketing is the official swag sponsor of MinnoTank. DoubleTake can help you with all your promotional products and branded merchandise needs. The owner, Matt Deutschman, is fourth generation in his family in the promotional marketing industry and understands the value of your company's time. Therefore, when working with DoubleTake Promotional Marketing, you receive a white glove approach to your continual need for promotional materials to maximize the impact of your brand. Visit minnotank.com/sponsor to learn more about DoubleTake. Caxi is a technology catalyst sponsor of MinnoTank. Caxi helps startups by planning and building cloud platforms and apps, as well as creating a digital strategy to accelerate their vision. Caxi is your partner in creating the most direct path to reach your customers through technology. Visit minnotank.com/sponsor to learn more about Caxi. A quick disclosure before we get started. Content provided on any MinnoTank affiliated channel is neither investment advice nor a solicitation of securities. It is simply education and entertainment created to help everyone have a better understanding of investments, money, and economics. One of the coolest things about all content presented on the MinnoTank network is that it is live. That means that anyone watching can ask any question you've ever had about investing, economics, or money. What we would love is if you would participate in our show. And how can you ask your questions? There are 3 ways to do so. First, we stream live to Facebook and YouTube simultaneously. So feel free on Facebook Live to ask your questions in the comment section. Or if you're tuning in on YouTube, please feel free to ask your questions in the live comment feed. Or if you're a fan of Twitter, please feel free to ask any questions by tweeting to us at #MinnoTank. Please don't forget to check out all the other awesome content on the MinnoTank network by visiting minnotank.com and by subscribing to the MinnoTank YouTube channel. MinnoTank is a platform to connect early-stage tech startups and investors through a live stream pitch. All right, everybody, enjoy the show. Good morning, everyone. This is Ken with MinnoTank, and I have Paul Toback from Sproing Fitness. Hey, guys, I'm so sorry if we're having a little bit of issues on our end with the audio. It seems like it's blipping back and forth, but we're trying to fix that on our end right now. Paul, how you doing today?
Ken, good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Glad to have you on the show.
Great.
Paul, we're going to jump right into it. So I know, as I mentioned before, and as we put it all over the internet, you are the ex-CEO of Bally Total Fitness, and you have your brand new early-stage tech startup, Sproing Fitness, that you're debuting today. So why don't you go ahead and give us the elevator pitch for Sproing Fitness, Paul?
Sure, Ken. That's great. Thanks again for having me on. Really excited to be here talking to everyone about Sproing. So the elevator pitch on Sproing is a relatively easy concept. Sproing is the first new running machine in 105 years, and it's better than the treadmill because the surface is soft, which absorbs impact, taking away the #1 problem people have with treadmills. And then from an investment and a business standpoint, the great thing about Sproing is there's several roads to market for us, both from a selling commercial equipment to opening boutique health clubs based on Sproing, to doing home version of the Sproing model, to going into rehab. So there's a lot of different ways to market, and it makes this a real exciting product and an exciting business.
Awesome, and we're going to pop right into problem right now. And before we get started, I know everyone who thinks about tech investment when it comes to fitness, the first thing they think of is Peloton. So we'll go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. $444 million in venture capital investment. So I know we're going to get to what your ask is later today, and I know we're just getting started, but I'm not sure they have the same experience and knowledge that you do. So let's go ahead and focus on Sproing, the problem that you're solving, and then we'll go through a generic, how a pitch should go. So what's the problem and what needs to change right now in the market?
So the problem is really there hasn't been any new technology in the indoor running market in 105 years. The treadmill was patented in 1905. I guess that makes it 108 years. And what we've done is we've tried to create a better mousetrap, right? The treadmill problem and the problem people have is the treadmill is boring and the treadmill hurts. It hurts. People don't necessarily understand why, because you're landing on a wooden board on your heel. For the most part, that's what you have to do. We've solved that by making the surface of our machine soft. So the technology, it took some development to figure out a way to get a flat, soft surface. Most things you put air into ball up and become round. Our surface is completely flat, filled with air, absorbs impact. And it also is more versatile because you can do many things on it besides just running forward. You can run backwards, you can do strength. Everything you do on Sproing has an instability component. It's like running on the beach.
And I'm glad you brought up running on the beach, because Paul, I know that you and I did an interview, and if anyone from the MinnoTank community is interested, they can always go back to the YouTube channel. There's a couple different interviews that we did with Paul, a little more long form, to dig further into this opportunity. But Paul, while we're in the problem, I know that a lot of entrepreneurs, how they develop their startup is by a personal issue. So I know that, being at the beach, you told me that you loved to run on the beach previously, and running on the beach here in Chicago helped you develop the concept for Sproing. So talk to me about the problem you saw there in comparison to the current situation with treadmills.
So for me, the problem was framed two ways. One is, as former CEO of Bally, I was the largest purchaser of treadmills in the entire world. And I'd go to trade shows all the time, be pulled aside by the manufacturers to see the secret new development. And it was always the same. It was always another treadmill or elliptical with a deeper cup holder or a thinner micron belt that nobody cared about, right? There was nothing new. And so it wasn't solving any consumer problems. It was basically a complete retread, for lack of a pun here. And then for me personally, I'm a runner, right? For me personally, I'm a runner. I love to run outside. I've run 2 marathons. I ran track in high school, but as I got older, my back was hurting from the pounding. But I used to run on the beach, and I love that feeling. And I said, if there was a way to capture the feeling of a more difficult workout, but an easier workout on your joints, that would be something incredible. And so I thought about it for a number of years on how to develop it, but really air was kind of the secret for me. And a lot of that came from not only running on the beach, but also watching what NASA was doing from a technology standpoint in landing the rovers on Mars. They came down cushioned in massive air bubbles that then deflated. And I thought something in there was the genesis of this idea.
Perfect. And that leads us right into the solution that Sproing provides specifically. So we have a good concept of the problem. Obviously, it's painful. I can tell you, as someone, I am 6 feet 5 inches tall, and I told you extensively about my volleyball experience, right? So the average person can really understand this, and especially as we're getting into a generation where things hurt more, we're recognizing more injuries, and rehab is a massive, billion-dollar business out there just trying to take care of our bodies and making us live longer. And I think we're moving away from a lot of the high intensity, high impact, destructive on our body, and much more for the longevity of our health. So talk to me about the solution that Sproing specifically provides.
So Sproing really allows you to do exactly that. It allows people who want to stay healthier longer to do high intensity training, but to do it safely and in a way that basically keeps you young again. You can perform at the level of a 20-year-old, and you can do it repeatedly, no matter whether you're in your 20s and have been injured, whether you're in your 20s and want to prevent injury, or whether you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and up to 70s, and you really want to once again capture that feeling of running. There's nothing more human than that endorphin rush you get from running. We are, as humans, used to running foot over foot. So what we've done is figure out a better way to do it. We literally have built and added new technology for doing the most basic of human functions.
And I know that when you talk about the solution, you're really comparing the elliptical and the treadmill, right? We all want to use, so the treadmill, in my mind, in layman's terms, and from an investor standpoint, when we're looking at trying to disrupt a market, we have the treadmill and we have the elliptical. The treadmill, high calorie burn, but very painful and destroys your joints over time. Elliptical, much lower calorie burn, but much less impact. So talk to me about how Sproing is right there in the middle, solving both problems.
You've stated it perfectly. So what we really understood this from a science perspective. We understood this from a user consumer perspective. The machine feels way better on you. But then when we began to look at the business dynamics and we began to look at the marketplace and all the numbers, we realized that there's a massive gap in the market between high impact treadmill, but burns a lot of calories, low impact elliptical. When you talk to people on the ellipticals, and I've done that a lot, you tap people on the shoulder and ask them why they're on it. No one really tells you they love it and they're there by choice. They all tell you the story about why they can't run anymore or can't be on the treadmill. Running is the movement of choice. It's the way people want to function, but they can't. So there's a massive gap between these two places in the marketplace, and anybody who can fill it, I think, has basically solved the equation, and we certainly think that's us.
Fantastic. So then, as this is an investment opportunity and we're pitching to investors today, let's talk about your business model. So talk to me about, I know you said there's a litany of ways. Talk to me about a couple of the different ways that Sproing Fitness is planning to generate revenue.
So again, Sproing can go to market several different ways. What we've done and are doing right now is we're focusing on two of those ways. One is selling Sproing equipment directly to health clubs and or rehab centers. And so that's been a good, solid, successful path forward for us. That's how we started. But somewhere along 2014, we really looked at the opportunity, instead of selling equipment ones and twos, was to be able to put equipment in 20 packages or more by doing high intensity interval training studios. Boutique studios are all the rage. It's the highest growth segment of the fitness market, so there's no question that the market is already there. High intensity interval training is the biggest fuel for that segment of the market, and we can do high intensity interval training better than anybody for a couple reasons. Number one, the equipment's easier on your body. Number two, the workout is so intense because you never have to jump off like you do with some of our competitors and run to another piece of equipment. Everything you do can be done there. And number three, it allows you to do cardio, strength, power moves all at once. Everything you're doing is working more muscles and giving you more calorie burn in less time with less impact.
Now, I want to focus on the business model specifically because that's what we're talking about. I know that whenever I first interviewed you and Sproing, I said, amazing, you're the ex-CEO of Bally, awesome, must have a ton of experience in this industry. But I told you my concern, which was, when you're looking at tech companies, and you haven't mentioned it yet, but you do, as your company, own 100% of the intellectual property for this device, which is wonderful. In comparison to someone like, and Peloton, just an easy comparison, $444 million of venture investment to Peloton. They own none of the IP. They don't own the iPad. They don't own the machine. And they might own the connection, the membership, but that's just about it. So talk to me about continual revenue sources for Sproing. I know you can sell the device once. You can sell an updated Sproing. Talk to me about the future of revenue and what it looks like to sell it going forward. And also let's talk about the total addressable market, because I'm not sure we understand how much opportunity is out there.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions in one, but let me kind of walk through them and then stop me if I'm getting too far afield. But
Sure.
You're exactly right. What Peloton and others are doing is basically taking existing equipment and bolting different things together. So congratulations to them. They've raised a ton of money. They've been very successful. They've had first mover advantage. But the truth is they don't own anything that we couldn't, any one of us, do ourselves. Get a bike and get an iPad. For us, it's different. We own all the IP. We're protected in, 10 or 12 countries all around the world. We have, I dare say, one of the broadest patents in the fitness industry. My partner, Steve Lenz, was the head of engineering at Life Fitness, the largest fitness equipment manufacturer, and does a ton of consulting on IP work in this industry. And we've been really successful in gathering great protection for what we own. So that's one piece of it. The next piece of it is we do have several recurring revenue models, much like Peloton does. There's nothing they're doing that we can't do, and we can do so much more. So the ability to do a home version with streaming video is absolutely accessible to us. We are already in works on a home version of the Sproing, which could be an amazing category killer because of all the versatility involved in it. At the same time, recurring revenue also occurs, much like other franchise concepts, Orange Theory, Gold's Gym. We have the ability to own and operate fitness clubs, which creates a recurring revenue from the operations annually. And we have the ability to license or franchise this concept and get recurring royalty fees, both from starting up initial franchise fees and from the ongoing royalty stream. So any one of these companies who's been successful in the industry, we really have the ability to do all of it. We have the ability to be successful like a Peloton in the ability to stream content and have subscribers. We have the ability to continue to sell equipment into a marketplace that's underpenetrated. And we have the ability to own and operate health clubs, generating revenue there, and to franchise health clubs and continue to get royalty streams there, both initial startup fee or franchise fees and ongoing royalties in a marketing fee and a license fee. So again, lots and lots of different ways to make money at this concept.
And I think we kind of skipped a little forward because the next subject is go-to-market strategy. So I think we did just focus a lot on that, and that's okay. And that's what I'm hearing here is whether you decide to put it in someone's home, you put it in a local studio, you sell it to gyms, by providing that potential long-term revenue stream, the fact is you own the IP. So I love that fact when we're comparing a lot of other tech startups who are focusing on, providing it using, hopping on the back of someone else, using a bike that someone else created is not nearly as valuable as owning the IP. You guys have the monitors, you have all the tech internally, you can track everything that's going on with them, give them beautiful analytics of their actual workout, and you own 100% of that data. So there's also a data play here as well. So just briefly, can we refocus on market strategy? So give us the point by point, nice and slow, of where you plan to go. So when you raise this round, and I know we haven't brought up the round just yet, but when you plan to raise this round, what is your go-to-market strategy, and where are you guys going to focus on in the next 1 to 3 years?
So when you look at the overall size of the markets, they're big. The club market is almost a $60 billion market. The equipment market is a $10 billion market. So you have large market sizes in both segments in which our company plays. Our strategy is a relatively simple one, which is to continue to sell equipment, but to focus the majority of our efforts over the next 2 to 3 years on basically seeding the concept through clubs that we own and we franchise. Currently, we have a club in Chicago that we own. We have 4 other franchise, really licensed concepts, 2 in Baltimore, 1 in Houston, and 1 in Los Angeles. And those clubs help us broaden our scope. And so what we're really going to do is build out one market definitively, which is Chicago, and then look for franchise licensees in other markets around the country and use some of the capital both to support the franchise licensing efforts, but most importantly, to build the brand and market it. Because the concept is great. The feedback we get from customers is fantastic. The feedback we hear most is, I didn't know about you, hadn't heard about you. And I think where Peloton used their money wisely was in a saturation television blitz, again, taking a non-proprietary concept and making it seem incredible. Same way Orange Theory has done it on the club side, taking treadmills and steps that have been around since the 1970s, and rowers, the same kind of thing, and basically combining those technologies and just creating great marketing behind it.
Awesome. So I know I'm skipping through again, but we're going to pop to competitive analysis now. So let's talk about some of your competitors. Who are you going up against as other companies? Who owns this market? You mentioned, a $60 billion fitness market and then a $10 billion equipment market. So talk to me about who are we competing with? You mentioned Orange Theory, some other boutique gyms. Talk to me about who's out there and how you're going to win against them.
Well, the truth is, in the fitness market, you really compete against everybody, right? Because you're competing for the same dollars and the same time and attention. So if you take that as a strategy, there's big box health clubs, there's mom and pop health clubs, and then there's these extra special boutiques. We definitely compete for time, money, and attention against all of them. Specifically, we would go up against the running-based studios, and I think we compare incredibly favorably. This studio we just opened in Chicago is literally next door, wall to wall, with an Orange Theory. And we believe, while they have first mover advantage and certainly name recognition, that from a comparison standpoint, again, we will let you burn more calories in less time with less pounding on your body. All 3 of those things are valuable to customers. And so that's a competitive advantage we have. And as I said before, because these things really do interrelate, right? The notion of the IP and protectability and a competitive advantage, the way it translates to investors into our business model is that anybody could open. For example, next to us, Orange Theory is next to us, but Barry's Bootcamp is 2 blocks down. And there's 2 other running studios that are opening. One is going to open a block north of us, and one is 3 blocks west of us. So they'll all compete in the treadmill space. But if you really don't like the treadmill or can't use the treadmill or understand that we give you the right running form, which will make you run better and faster outside, you have to come to us, because there's no alternative. So again, our go-to-market strategy and our competitive advantage, we believe, are all tied up together, and that's what makes this compelling. So we will compete against them, and then we'll compete against anybody in the equipment side who's selling treadmills.
Now, I have a quick
but we
question
believe...
for you. I mean, interrupt you. I'm sorry, Paul. I know that you focus a lot on cardio, because you said running studios, but I think cardio is really one of the big focuses that you have. Can I ask you a quick question about your target market? So, are you specifically going after people who have injuries, the rehab market? I know that's one of the aspects that you really work on, but that's where I could see this being very valuable. And if I watch some of your videos, if I go to sproingfitness.com, I see a lot of people, they're not necessarily the young 20-somethings. You have people who've been through it all, who've played sports for 15 or 20 years, and they want to get back into shape. So you're talking about people who are 30, 40 plus who want to keep that cardio going and have an active lifestyle. So is that part of your target market, and are you looking to be competitive for that segment of the market, or how does that relate with your target audience?
So it's a great question. It's one that even, I mean, I'll kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and say it's one we discuss a lot. Who is the competitive market? We think we play and compete effectively against and for all the 20-year-olds. And that's a market that this industry never likes to give up on. However, we believe that there's a really untouched industry, a market in the over 30-year-olds. So instead of your traditional 18 to 34 marketplace that fitness clubs go after, we believe our market is probably more like a 30 to 55-year-old. And that's right. Anybody who's had to, the injury notion makes people think originally, oh, this is for old or broken down people. But that's not right. Injuries occur now in athletes way younger. I've had many, many, many people through the studios in their 20s who've been injured with intense competition in their teens. And so I think when you talk about anyone who's injured or anyone who wants to maintain intensity, or frankly, at any age wants to maintain their body, we're for them. But we're definitely for the people who say, I can't compete anymore, I can't maintain intensity, and I want to. If you want to look at the success in that marketplace, you see it also CrossFit's been bringing people back in who are a little bit older, who want to start lifting again. I mean, there's a whole pro and con to that market. But I think for the most part, this industry's done a bad job of reaching out to anyone over 34. And we believe we can be super effective and very powerful in that market.
No, I agree you can. That's one of the reasons we selected you to come on MinnoTank. And we know, and actually we're popping into next is your management team. I'll tell you, we have some questions coming in through the live stream. We're going to answer them at the very end, audience. So just so you guys know, we'll answer your questions at the very end. But Paul, we know you're gonna make a big impact on the market, but factually, you have some of the most experience in the entire world, not just yourself as Paul Toback, the ex-CEO of Bally Total Fitness, but also Steve Lenz, your business partner. So talk to me about you, and just briefly, 2 or 3 minutes between your experience and Steve Lenz, and tell me how you guys came together to build Sproing Fitness.
Yeah, so Steve, my business partner, amazing guy. With an incredible career. Steve was the former head of engineering at Life Fitness. And for those following who don't know Life Fitness, division of Brunswick, which is the largest manufacturer of fitness equipment in the world, based here in Chicago. And Steve has probably, haven't done the official count, more patents on exercise equipment, treadmills and ellipticals than any other human on the planet. I think he's 30 some odd patents right now, before we even started Sproing. So the way we met is it's a great story. I've had this idea, as I said, after running on the beach. And in my life, after leaving Bally, I went to one networking event, reluctantly. And there I ran into a guy who I had known at Life Fitness. And I said, I have this idea. If you ever knew anyone who could help me. He said, I know this guy, Steve Lenz. So Steve and I talked on the phone. I pitched him the Sproing concept. He was interested but not enthusiastic, and I kept pushing him to be more enthusiastic, and he wouldn't be. And the reason he wouldn't be is both he, more so even than we saw concepts all the time. People are always in this industry pitching what the next best thing is, and most likely or most often they wound up being a machine that would exercise this part of your finger, or that could when you're doing bicep curls make your arm extend longer. Nothing was really functional, and nothing was really core to what an exercise program should be. This was a new cardio machine. So Steve said, let's build a prototype. He built me one. He came up to my garage. He assembled it. We'd never met before. We shook hands. We never met each other. We got on it. The prototype was built out of lawnmower tires, camping mattresses, and 2x6 lumber. We each got on it. And then we looked at each other and we said, our eyes widened. We said, holy something. This really works. And most importantly, it feels good and natural. And so Steve has been an amazing asset, a great stable business partner. He's got all these engineering degrees. He also has his MBA. And together, I think he and I have close to 50 years in the fitness industry. So a lot of experience on this.
Why are you ashamed of that, Paul? I think that's one of the best things about tech startups is that we might see, a 20-something come into the game every time. But you remember, 95% of startups fail. And I think one of the reasons is we have a lot of people under the age of 30 with very little experience entering the market and trying to compete with someone like you, who has the ex-CEO of Bally's more purchasing experience in cardio than anyone probably in the entire world. And then you also have the ex-VP of engineering. You're talking about a power duo. So I don't think you should be ashamed of your experience. I think actually quite the opposite. If investors come to you, they should be looking for that experience and that knowledge to do things much more intelligently and obviously use that money efficiently, which brings us to our next point. What's the ask? So, Paul, talk to me about what you're looking to raise right now and what's your current situation for your round.
So in this round, we're looking to raise $3 million. Use of proceeds goes kind of as we've alluded to throughout this presentation towards basically marketing, building out 1 to 2 markets with own clubs, and then seeding and developing a licensed franchise system in 2 to 4 different cities throughout the country. We believe that kind of capital will allow us to grow to 7 to 9 clubs in Chicago, which again will give us, in this industry, clustering has a massive and empowering effect. It saves you resources from a marketing perspective. It's better from a management perspective. So every time you look at operators in this industry, the smart ones are always clustering. So that would be our use of proceeds on the own side. The use of proceeds on the licensed franchise development side, as I said, would be to build out other markets with good, stable, smart partners in other markets. And then really supporting the brand, because I think that's the most important thing. When people know about it and try it, that's when we can see really passionate converts, and that's when this thing begins to grow exponentially.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about the clustering. I don't know very much about your industry, but I can say that location is paramount to workout facilities. I personally work at a gym that's really crappy. It's here in Chicago as well. It's a really old gym. It's nasty, but it's 3 blocks away, and in the snow, I can't compete. So clustering is really important. I might hear about Sproing, but if it's not within 1 mile of my home, I probably won't go to it. But really interesting, because I know that we, at least here in Chicago, we have Soul Cycle, which has a huge pull, and people travel 45 minutes out of their way to get there. So awesome. So a $3 million ask, raising to expand to 9 cities, you said 7 to 9 cities. And how long, what runway does that get you? A year, or how much further?
We think that gets us 2, maybe 3 years, again, depending on the growth. I mean, there is a growth cycle, right? Because even if you went out and found locations today, to sign leases and to expand, and obviously at that growth rate, we have some administrative costs to expand the team a little bit, because as great as Steve and I are, and as great as our hair is, we certainly can't do it all ourselves. So we need a little bit more admin help and a little bit more growth in the team. But yeah, we think that gets us 2 to 3 years and gets us a pretty substantial payback and a really good footing into the marketplace.
Awesome. Okay. So if investors are looking to get a hold of you, we are popping up your email address right now. So let me go ahead and ask one of the questions. We have a person who tuned in named Will Thompson. He said, "I'm so sorry I missed the very beginning. As an exercise tool, does a Sproing user need training, or is it a matter of running on a new system?" So talking about the difficulty of use, right? If I come in and I go for my first time using it, what's the barrier to entry? How long does it take me to learn how to use this device?
I mean, we've done a lot of looking at new people on this machine, and at the beginning when we started, the people who were naysaying said, "Oh, people may not get this," but the truth is, it's running, so it's really easy. I mean, I've watched hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people go through the process, and I would tell you most get it right away, and if they don't get it by the time, I'd say the first 2 intervals, 60 seconds, you see people running effectively on it. We've even done a little experiment where we took a little child who had never seen either piece, and we introduced them to a treadmill and a Sproing, and they naturally gravitated toward the Sproing and got it immediately, where the treadmill was puzzling. So I think, unencumbered by all of our preconceived notions on the treadmill, the Sproing is really much easier. It feels better too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so sad. I'm sorry, Paul, that I haven't got over to actually try out the Sproing yet. But I know that I happen to have some, I think I told you whenever we first got on our very first call for our introduction, I have some professional athletes in my family, and they always hazard against treadmills. And they said, the pain, the destruction it does to your body is very dangerous. And so it's quite funny that you had a child test it. I really want to discuss the fact that, if you go to sproingfitness.com, you can check out so many things on there about how Sproing is different. They have an egg test where they drop a raw egg right on there. It doesn't even break. They have some great videos. We did produce a quick trailer for Sproing, so you can kind of see what the opportunity is and if they're gonna, what they're gonna raise. But everyone should feel free. So, early stage tech investors who are looking at an opportunity to invest in the fitness space, if you're looking to invest in growing this franchise further, Paul's email is right below. You can always email me at ken@minnotank.com for more information. Always make a personal introduction to Paul. Paul, any last words before we leave? This was an awesome pitch. We're right at the 10:30 mark. It seems like we don't have any more questions from the audience. What else? What are the last few words we need to hear about Sproing Fitness and how you're going to change the world?
Well, I'd say people like to run. That's what we do naturally, and this is the first new running machine in 105 years. It's not only new, though, it's better, and it solves a problem, which is people are getting injured running. They're running the wrong way, and they're hurting themselves, but they want to stay active. And this solves a massive problem. And then I'd say this, for those looking to invest in technology, don't shortchange the fact that just because this isn't computer-based or on a chip of silicone, that this is not a tech investment, because in the end, we have created brand new technology. It's a new machine, sensors that detect footfalls and convert them through a special algorithm into pacing and speed. All that stuff was developed by us, patented by us, and so it's really unique. It just, it doesn't look like a computer, but there's computer-based technology in it, and the machine itself has got real amazing technology.
And I'm gonna dig into that one point right before we go, because it's so important. So in the world of data today, when you talk about fitness data and understanding how someone moves and runs, especially rehabilitation, let's talk about in the future of integrating into other devices. So whenever my biggest problem, I'll tell you as a personal user, I don't know how much this affects Sproing, but I use a lot of different fitness trackers. So mostly I use my phone, where I use Google Fit, or I'll use like a Fitbit or whatnot. Whenever you're pulling in all that information, it's one of the biggest problems whenever you go to a gym, and as an investor you say, okay, where do I feel the stress and where do I feel the pain and what bothers me? It's awesome to have these fitness trackers. It's not awesome they're not all connected together. So the fact that you have that proprietary data, I can be able to come in with my information, be able to use my device and track it. That's really attractive to me, because I can say how many calories I burned, and keeping track, and everyone wants to be data driven with their own lives. So because you own all that, you guys have the opportunity to not only use that, not only attack the Peloton market where you can go into people's homes, do the franchise market where you hit that side as well, but also the data component, whether it comes to insurance, whether it comes to fitness industry, whether it comes to other large companies or people who are getting back into fitness. So that interesting market of those those coming back into the fitness industry. So I'm just rambling. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but what I'm trying to say is it's a really interesting data opportunity as well. For someone who might have been considered out of the market. So when you hit 45 or 50, people just say you're done working out. There's a very small percentage of people. But if Sproing can bring them back into the market, bring them back into fitness interest, that might be a really interesting play for the data side, as well as connecting with other big brands and saying, hey, we're bringing them back.
I think that's right. I mean, you're basically hitting the baby boomers, the Gen Xers. These are the people who are spending money, who are buying leisure goods, especially as the economy's recovered since the recession. These are people who are data junkies, who want to know more information. The people who are tracking their fitness, and from a business standpoint, it's data we want to capture. It's data we want to both use ourselves, but also help them use and engage. And I think we have all that opportunity. I mean, I should mention that the Sproing studios, we use heart rate based training, so everybody gets emails afterwards showing them how they perform, calories they burned. It's all scientific. The science on this is really pretty impeccable, and so all that though is great from a consumer standpoint and great from a business operator standpoint. So that's an exciting piece of this as well.
I love it, Paul. All right, that was great. So guys, just so you understand, MinnoTank, that was Paul Toback, the ex-CEO of Bally Fitness, presenting Sproing Fitness, his investment opportunity, $3 million raise. His email is right below. If you are interested in pitching your early stage tech startup, please do reach out to MinnoTank. You can go to MinnoTank.com and you can join our wait list there to send us your pitch deck, and we'll personally evaluate you on whether or not you make sense to pitch to our hundreds of investors subscribed to MinnoTank. So, Paul, thank you very much for your time today. Awesome pitch, and I wish you the best of luck.
Great, Ken. Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye, guys.